35 years ago, the anti-Vietnam War movement that started with a handful of dissidents on American campuses ended up bringing down a president. Today, something not unlike it is brewing in Israel. At the moment, it's not how many there are, it's who they are. 450 members of Israel's armed forces who are telling their government, hell no, we won't go. To the West Bank or Gaza, that is, declaring that while they would defend Israel with their lives, they will not serve in an army of occupation and have opted to do time in prison rather than a tour of duty in Palestine.
When a group of soldiers who come from elite combative units are raising questions about the righteousness of this war and the way in which the Israeli army is operating, then the leadership cannot afford to ignore it.
Dr. Yaron Ezrahi is a political scientist who, as a lieutenant colonel, served for over 2 decades as a strategic analyst to the Prime Minister, the Defense Minister, and the Army's Chief of Staff. Did you talk to anyone in the Army about this?
Oh, yes, I did. And my impression was that the leaders of the Israeli army are definitely taking this message very gravely, very seriously.
There have been peace movements in Israel before, but this one is different because it's cut from the very cloth of the Israeli flag. Almost all its members serve in combat units. Most are officers. They not only come from the army, they're among its best and its brightest. Yaniv Iskovitz and David Sunshine are commandos in an elite unit of paratroopers. Last December, they were called to duty in the Gaza Strip, which is when they decided they would never go back.
I think that from the first moment that I reached Gaza Strip, in every single minute that I was in this, camp, in this military camp, I felt that what I'm doing is wrong.
Yeah.
I was in the midst of a very dense Palestinian city, and I saw through the binoculars their city, their lives, their routine. I saw the poverty. I saw the fact that our presence there simply causes impossible situation for their normal life.
But normal life was no longer possible for David and Yaniv when they got back to Tel Aviv. Gaza haunted them. They had marathon sessions with other officers at this cafe, deciding what to do. They ended up writing a letter. It read in part, "We hereby declare that we shall not continue to fight this war of the settlements. We shall not fight in order to dominate, expel, starve, and humiliate an entire people." By January, they had 52 signatures on the letter, enough they felt to publish and go public. This decision to refuse, how difficult was it?
It was, I think, the most difficult decision I ever made in my life. I didn't believe that I will say no to serving in any circumstances. And you feel like there's something in your heart that is torn apart from you.
And this at a time when Israel is being torn apart by terror. All polls show that a vast majority of Israelis are behind Ariel Sharon's drive to root terrorism out of the occupied territories. But the same polls also show that a majority wants to end the occupation, evacuate Israeli settlements in the West Bank and Gaza, and draw a line, build a fence, Israelis on one side, Palestinians on the other. What the rebellious soldiers are saying is we're dropping out of the occupation now. It is dehumanizing for both sides.
There was an old lady who ran to me and spat in my face.
Amit Mashiach is a first sergeant in the artillery. Dealing with civilians up close is not what he was trained to do.
You got people around you. It's a dangerous situation because you can't really make contact with them. You got your soldiers behind you, seeing you being spat in the face. And what do?
What did you do?
I shoved her, and we moved on.
Was it a comfortable thing to do?
No, it was a terrible thing to do.
What was worse, getting spat in the face or shoving an old lady?
Shoving her. I shoved her hard. I shoved her real hard.
not the stuff of an officer and a gentleman, which is why Mashiach joined the movement, which has become known as the Refuseniks. They all come from the heart of the Israeli army, and the army is the heart of Israel. That's because Israel has always been at war, and because all Israelis, men and women, serve in the army. It is a rite of passage, the most unifying force in Israeli society. When an Israeli soldier is killed, it is a death in the family.
The army consists of brothers and sisters and fathers and sons. And if you have 450 people willing to take the risk of going to jail and being called traitor by a right-wing spokesman, and these 450 people are patriots with record, this is not a small event.
The army is a sacred cow in Israel. Our refusal is an act of despair. We believe that the situation now is so desperate that the only way to shake this country, the only way to shake our leaders, is to kick this sacred cow and say, we're not playing this. We're not playing this game anymore. Give us a future.
The irony is that when you speak of the army as being a sacred cow, the sacred cow is you.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. That's why it's so difficult for them to deal with us. That's why we're being called traitors.
Traitors and more. Prime Minister Sharon says the Refuseniks encourage terrorism. The Army's Chief of Staff says what they're doing is tantamount to mutiny. And a member of Sharon's cabinet, Limor Livnat, told us,
they are objectors without any conscience. And they are an embarrassment to the State of Israel and the Jewish people.
As a member of the government, are you worried at all about these Refuseniks? Do you think they pose a threat?
No, not at all. I believe that the vast majority of Israelis really believe that now we have to protect ourselves, defend ourselves, and make sure that there will be no bombers any longer.
The minister has a point. Since the recent spate of suicide attacks, especially after the slaughter of 28 Israelis the first night of Passover, more people have been volunteering than refusing. Buses keep leaving Tel Aviv and other cities, packed with men and women who did their duty a long time ago and are determined to do it again. Some are Israeli Americans who flew back from the States to fight terror.
This is my answer for being angry. Now, I'm angry as an American for 9/11, and I'm angry as an Israeli for the last 20 months of Intifada.
He is not alone, and that anger explains why the Refuseniks have become the most controversial topic in Israel today. Whenever and wherever any Refuseniks make a public appearance, strident voices are raised against them, even when you gather for a calm discussion in a calm place like the campus of the Hebrew University.
There is a place for civil disobedience also in a democracy, as long as it is non-violent, and is prepared to pay the price. For breaking the law.
Do you think the Refuseniks are traitors?
I think they're either dumb, either just schmucks. I don't see any other part.
Dumb
or schmucks. What they want is publicity. Put them in jail, they'll be much happier.
In fact, 50 conscientious objectors are in jail today, more than ever before. Going to jail instead of serving is what Lieutenant David Damlin was considering 2 months ago when he was called up to the West Bank. He was friends with many of the Refuseniks and agreed with them, but he didn't know what to do. He talked to his mother, Robbie Damlin.
I said that if he went to jail, I would support him in whatever he chose to do. And he thought a lot about it, and then what he decided was that he would go and serve in the army, because otherwise he would have gone into jail, come out of jail, gone into jail every time and come out again if he didn't serve.
So he did serve. He ended up right here on this West Bank road. He was commanding an army checkpoint which protected a Jewish settlement called Ofra. The checkpoint isn't here anymore, and neither is David's unit. On the morning of March the 3rd, David was asleep in this old police post which served as the unit's bunker. He was woken up by the sound of gunfire. 3 of his soldiers had been killed by a Palestinian sniper firing from that hill. David ran outside and got a bullet in the chest. He died instantly.
Do you feel in any way that your son sacrificed his life for your country?
No. My son sacrificed his life for settlers, for a cause that he didn't believe in. So no, I don't think he sacrificed his life for this country. I think it's a waste.
Once upon a time in Israel, these questions didn't come up. That's when Israelis fought wars of survival against Arab armies. And one of the heroes of that simpler era has become one of the Refuseniks' strongest backers.
They are the core of the Israeli society. Core. Lieutenants, captains, majors.
Former Air Force colonel and physician Yigal Shohat was once part of that corps. However you say the right stuff in Hebrew, he's got it, and he took it to Egypt the first day of the '67 war.
You were one of the pilots who took out the Egyptian Air Force at the beginning of the war.
Yes, I was I took part of it.
You won the war.
Well, yeah, that's what we do, actually.
In 1970, Shohat was shot down over Egypt and lost a leg. Israel's leaders made pilgrimages to his bedside, and he became, well, a legend. Then a few months ago, he published a letter urging soldiers to stop serving in the occupied territories and pilots to stop hitting Palestinian cities. It was such a momentous step for Dr. Shohat that he wanted to explain it precisely, so he switched to Hebrew.
I never gave, at any point, a recommendation not to serve or to refuse altogether. And this group is not disobeying in general, it's a group that's refusing to do a specific thing. This is threatening Israeli society right now, so that its eyes will be opened. And so this group of people, in my eyes, represents a strategic turning point in Israeli society.
A strategic turning point? Fewer than 500 soldiers? Can this be the beginning of a movement that will take Israel out of the territories the way America was taken out of Vietnam?
Yes, I think this process cannot be stopped. This is a war on the fault lines of the political divisions of the Israeli society.
There will be civilians killed and will be soldiers killed. And this impossible situation must be stopped. And it can't be stopped only if we just get out of there.
This week, the highest-ranking Refusenik yet, Lieutenant Colonel Yoram Rubenfeld, a tank commander in charge of close to 1,000 men, gathered his officers and told them he won't serve in the occupied territories anymore.